gathered was so clear that an electro-optical image stands out next to an F-16 fighter. An infrared image showed where concrete had cooled down from the shadow of a C-130 that had recently taken off from 56,000 feet. And they can't find bin Laden in Afghanistan? What? And they cannot track aircraft that have gone massively off course until someone tells them? Goodness me. Throughout that period, nothing happened to change events in any of these planes, and one of them in particular was absolutely outrageous. What's supposed to happen, and what happened 125 times in the year 2000, is that the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration, when anyone loses contact, air traffic controller, with a cockpit, and or the transponder goes off, they are ordered by the regulations, and you can see them on the internet if you want to find them, to contact NORAD, whose job it then is to scramble jets to go up and look and see what the hell's going on. Because you don't want, particularly in crowded airspace of North America, especially the eastern side of it, planes going around without connection to the ground. 125 times that happened in the year 2000. In the 2 hours, the crucial 2 hours of September the 11th, nothing that made any difference. The case of Payne Stewart, the golfer, he took off in a plane, a light plane, Learjet, 1999, went up there, there was a compression problem, they all went unconscious. What happened? They lost contact clearly with the air traffic controller. He told NORAD. NORAD scrambled jets and they escorted it across America and making sure that it was going to fall when it ran out of petrol, ran out of fuel, into a non-populated area. Exactly what happened. And they said that in the Pentagon, the command center in the Pentagon that's supposed to coordinate hijacks or problems in the sky actually was following on a screen across America. That's what happened with a Lear jet. A 757, 767, nothing. Ludicrous. But if the normal response was there, maybe it might not have happened the way it did. Interestingly, further investigation required, I feel, the head of security at the Federal Aviation Administration at that time was Michael Canavan, who, this guy, whose previous job was head of special operations and psychological warfare with the US military. Interesting change of career, I feel. I went back to all the people involved in the 9/11, all the airlines, the security people, NORAD, the FAA, and I learned a lot about the way the cover-ups are done. First of all, NORAD gave me a timeline for that day, and they agreed that the timeline was true, and if it is, the FAA, the government civilian part of this air traffic control, reaction or non-reaction on 9/11, has some stunning questions to answer, but has never been asked. Because the time they left it, after not only after involving the planes that hit the World Trade Center, but after that had happened and other planes were lost in terms of contact and transponders, the time they left it was unbelievable. Time enough for nothing to be done. And I'll tell you another thing that I found. What I did, I went to all these people. NORAD gave me a timeline and they reacted a little bit. Every single body else, the airlines, everything, they said to me in unison, we can't answer your questions. We've been told that everything has to be taken to the FBI. You'll have to ask them. So what they do is they take all possibility of any information coming out that is not the official story, because you're centralizing the reaction to the official story. I then contacted the FBI, and they told me a guy to write to, and I sent them nearly 50 questions, basic questions about 9/11 and the inconsistencies in the official story. And they came back and said, I got a fax, in fact, 48 hours later from some government department in Washington saying, we cannot answer your questions because there is an ongoing investigation. And you'll have to wait until the files come available under the Freedom of Information Act, which can be years from now, it said. So what they do is they tell you the official story. There's no problem with the ongoing investigation when they give you that bugger. But when you want to ask questions about it, there's an ongoing investigation, we can't talk about it. And that's how they orchestrate it. And keep anybody talking about it that would go off message. In fact, do you remember, this bloody story, I sat in my front room and I watched a BBC newsreader tell me without bloody laughing, just after 9/11, that the FBI had found a passport from one of the hijackers a few blocks from ground zero. Now, I'm not a physics major, but fireball, paper passport, thousands of bodies that died in those towers never been found, within days, paper passport. I mean, was it singed? I mean, was it perfect? What was it? And the FBI called a press conference to say they'd found it. Why? They know that people do not retain detail. They retain an image, particularly from television, but newspapers as well. And therefore, what they do when they're feeding the cover story is they feed an image. And the image they wanted to feed at that time was the official story was true. So they call a news conference, we found this passport, one of the hijackers. Hey! They were right then, it was them bloody people. Hey! And then they shut up about it. Never mentioned again, because it's done its job. So what I did, I went back to New York police, who were also involved in this, and I said, I want to talk to someone about the hijacker's passport. So they get me on a guy called Detective Burns, I think his name was. And I said to him, excuse me, just out of interest, you know that passport you found, one of the hijackers here? Which of the hijackers did it belong to? Interesting question. I can't talk about that, it's an ongoing investigation. I said, well look, you've said you found a passport, you've named the hijackers, how would it affect the ongoing investigation if you told me which one it belonged to? I don't know how it would affect the ongoing investigation, but it will affect the ongoing investigation because there's an ongoing investigation, and therefore we can't talk about it. I said to him at the end, so there isn't one then? Okay. On the anniversary, wait this. On the anniversary of 9/11, an ITV documentary team asked the FBI that question too about the passport, and this was their reply. The hijacker's passport is a rumor that might be true. Oh! Newspeak! There never was one! Just one of endless bloody lies. Now this is Flight 77 that took off from Washington Dulles Airport and was hijacked out there and then was brought back 45 minutes to strike the Pentagon. Some people say it didn't, but let's just go on the thing that it did, because this part of the story doesn't matter either way. You go on the internet and you can find the reaction program of NORAD to hijacked planes. You are highly professional hijackers, and you want to hit the Pentagon, and you are taking off from Washington Dulles, and you want to hit the Pentagon also in Washington, and you know of the reaction to hijackings by NORAD. So what you do is, amazingly professional hijackers, is you fly the sodding plane 45 minutes out into the Midwest, you then hijack it and fly it all the sodding way back. Are you kidding? And this is while the towers are being hit, it managed to be hijacked here and come all the way bloody back. And Rumsfeld said the first thing he knew about it was when he felt a jarring thing. So the bloody Pentagon being hit. The guy's a defense secretary. Oh, I forgot to mention that, Mr. Secretary. Insane. I'll get to them in a minute. So it smacked into the Pentagon at the absolute opposite end of that massive building to where Rumsfeld was. Now what should have happened, like I say, is that there should have been some reaction. Now, they should have put planes up and sorted it out. Now, they say, belatedly, that they scrambled planes from Cape Cod to the New York attacks. Oh, didn't quite get there in time. And then they said they scrambled planes belatedly, as I'll mention in a second, to meet Flight 77 when they eventually realized there was a hijacked plane 45 minutes out from Washington heading back towards Washington. Don't tell the Defense Secretary, though. Now, they say they scrambled planes to meet this threat to Washington from an airport at Langley, Virginia, 130 miles away. 130 miles away, they're the nearest planes to defend the no-fly zone over Washington. Why have one? But 10 miles down the road from the Pentagon is Andrews Air Force Base, where they keep Air Force One, Scare Force One as it became known after 9/11, the President's plane. It's where